Hey guys, it's your girl Lynn here, and thanks for joining me for this episode breakdown of The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, episode 4. I gotta say, man, this was an emotional and mental roller coaster for the characters, for the fans. It was crazy. I spent a lot of time saying, what the hell is going on, or what the hell, Rick? The word vomit coming from him in this episode was real. What I really want to talk about in this breakdown, though, is the symbolism and possible foreshadowing in this one. So let's just dig right in. But please make sure you smash the like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. The support is appreciated. So we open up this episode with the last scene of episode 3. Rick and Michonne in the helicopter staring each other down. Rick is just so frustrated with how things are going. I mean, he told Michonne, do not show them who you are. She breaks the kill record. She takes, I think they call it an R-dip from Thorne. She's just giving him the stink eye since he left that getaway note that basically fooled her. And she's literally had to take Michonne out of Thorne's crosshairs. She's on Bill's radar, and she's just run amok, and he doesn't know what to do. And then on the other side of the helicopter, Michonne is reeling from what Rick said to her. Everything we had is broken. You hear me? The thing is, Michonne knows BS when she hears it, and she proceeds to throw them both out of the helicopter. I mean, how mad do you have to make a woman for her to throw you guys to a possible death? Oh my God, that was crazy. So one of the things that everyone was wondering about was exactly how far up were they? And did they have parachutes? Now, I think I must have watched the end of episode 3 about 20 times, and I saw no evidence of a parachute. But thankfully, the opening shot of episode 4, we pick up right where they left off in episode 3. So our questions were answered immediately. They fell in water. And they were flying just low enough to where that impact wouldn't kill them. We also get shots of an old school Rumba cleaning the floor of this upscale condo unit. I think every fan, not just me, was like, what the hell? What the hell is going on here? Where is this place? At first I thought maybe it was somewhere that the CRM had set up. And then we also have Tony Orlando's I think it was like 1973, the song came out, Tie a Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree, playing throughout the cold opening. Now, this was just the first example of Genius writing by Denai Guerrera. I mean, from the start, we get a song about a guy who's been away a long time, and he's not sure if he'll be welcome home as he is. So he's telling his beloved, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, which I think that kind of thing comes from, I don't know, maybe the 19th century, to where a woman would put that around the tree to let her man know that everything's good, you could come home, you're welcome, the love is still there. So I just found that a really good choice of music or song to open this up, because Rick, he's lost. This man has been gone for years. He has no idea what has happened to his family. All he has are his memories, and at some time, probably the hope died, but he had hope, right? So, but I do think the idea about this yellow ribbon comes into play later in the episode. So fast forwarding, they find their way into this condo unit, and they're immediately greeted with luxuries from the world before. I mean, this place is equipped with his very own version of Jarvis, and if you've ever seen Iron Man or the Avengers, then you know what I'm talking about. This place has electricity, running water, a view, an empty fridge. That was the one thing that, for some reason, it shocked me, but it makes perfect sense that there would be nothing in the fridge. The lights are on now. We get another stare down between Rick and Michonne, she is pissed, and it's radiating from her. From the first 10 minutes of the episode, we get a lot. We get a lot of things in the background, a lot of the emotions displayed on their faces without them even having to say a word. So what I really loved about this show is they're not dragging out issues just to keep the fans wondering and keep us on a hook. We almost immediately get the RJ reveal. Michonne is tearing into Rick and about tricking her and trying to make her leave without him. And she uses the word children and how he should write them and tell them he's not coming back to them. Of course, this gets Rick's attention. I don't think she meant to tell him in that way, but she was just so angry and just in such disbelief that I think it just slipped out. And she ended up telling him, his name is Rick. We call him RJ. She also answers a question about the timeline because remember, she and Nat were in that mall and we saw the seasons changing through the skylight. So she does verify that she spent a year in that mall with Nat trying to recover. So the timeline question is answered there. So it's been 8 years since Rick's been gone, and she's been away probably a year and a few months because we really don't know how much time passed between the time Michonne actually left the boat with Virgil to when she found King Bach and his girl, which right now I can't remember their names in the show. So it's probably been a year and a few months for her being away from her kids. And one of the things that I've appreciated about this series is the unexpected is happening. We have come to expect certain things from the characters in the Walking Dead universe. And when it comes to Rick Grimes, we all know that from the beginning, it's always been about him finding his family, about protecting his family. And when they're separated, he always finds them. After Michonne's confession, the first thing out of Rick's mouth is, "You need to give me the PRB." And oh my God, like, what the hell, Rick? I mean, we're not used to this new Rick. I mean, he finds out he has another son, and this is what you say? This is what's coming out of your mouth? I mean, on the surface, I guess you could take Rick at face value and believe what he's saying, that he's just trying to protect his family and everyone back home. But something about it just didn't ring true. And Michonne calls him on this later because this is not him. This is not who he is. So, of course, they start to argue about that. I mean, he's not even asking how anyone else is back home. He's just, give me the PRB, we got to go back, or you got to leave. And it gets to a point where Michonne is just like questioning his love for her. Like, she says, do you still love me? And he says, yeah, of course I still love you. I've never stopped loving you. I mean, that part was just truly heartbreaking. She truly can't see the man she came looking for. And this is a callback to one of the last things Nat said before he died. And he asked, is it still him? Can you tell? Because time changes people. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. And at the time, I felt like those words would come back to haunt Michonne. Rick's is certainly not the same. And the way he's been talking to her since probably the last half of episode 3 to the first half of episode 4, it's not him. That's not how he is. So it's during this part of the conversation that he tells her that, Jadis, she's the one who brought me here, and she's threatening to kill everyone we love, and that includes our children, our son. So they need to go back. And the fact that Rick could write her a note, prepare this getaway, and then say he's not coming and he thought that she would leave, it just goes to show how lost he is, because it's like he doesn't even know his wife anymore. I mean, she's not Lori. She's not going to, take the next flight out upon hearing you've disappeared or you're gone or you don't want to be with her. I mean, she's not Lori, dude. And you're talking to her like she is. So the morning comes, and she's giving him the PRB after he tells her, I love you. I've never stopped loving you. And Rick happens to look out the window, and he sees on the other far side of the building that the helicopter they were in has crashed into the building. And so Michonne is thinking immediately, just like the rest of us, oh my God, this is it. This is our way out. They'll think we're dead. We can go home and they won't come looking for us. Michonne saved their lives by throwing them out of that helicopter. But Rick is still refusing to go home. It's like one thing after another with him. Like, he has all these reasons why he can't go home, even when he's given a clear way out. And there was a few things to note in this particular scene. On the coffee table, we have a book, The Art of Revolution. I mean, this title is self-explanatory. This can mean a couple of different things. So one of the things it can mean is that the hold the CRM has over Rick's psyche could be what this is referencing. How can he break away and shake loose years of conditioning and Okafor Kool-Aid drinking? I mean, because I really believe that after a while he started to believe what Okafor was telling him. And the mission, I mean, it was something for him to focus on, and it kept him grounded in the reality that he was stuck in. So, I mean, this man has been through it emotionally, mentally, and physically. He was so desperate to go home that he cut off his own hand. So Rick's having this internal war, and it's coupled with the AI temperature announcements. Again, show the writing skill of Danai Gurira. With every shift of mental position from Rick and Michonne, there was an overhead announcement. But I'll talk about that in a moment. Through this episode, Rick keeps telling her she should go or they should go back, but then almost in the same breath, he says he will always love her and wouldn't leave her. The book could also foreshadow Rick and Michonne going back to the CRM to revolutionize it. And maybe they're going back because something has stopped them. Some unforeseen roadblock has stopped them from going home. And they realize we can't go home until we handle this situation here. So they might end up doing exactly what Okafor wanted. I mean, after all, we've seen time and time again Rick's group take places over or just burn places to the ground when they came up against them. I mean, we got the governor in Woodbury, we got Terminus, we got Alexandria, we got the Saviors, we got the Whisperers. Like, this group has shut other groups down, no matter how big and bad the other group thought they were. And I also feel like maybe Rick feels indebted to Okafor, because after all, it was Okafor that had kept Rick alive all this time. And it was just crazy to me that it ended up being his own wife and her friend who killed the man who had been his savior in the CRM. So once again, when it comes to the AI, Danai did a phenomenal job writing this episode. The first time I noticed the timing of the temp announcement, Rick had just said we need to go back. And the AI says your preferred temperature will be reached in X amount of minutes. And it's funny because this mindset that Rick has become accustomed to, being the good soldier, so he's comfortable in this current mental state and doesn't want to let it go. The next mention is your preferred temp has been reached. Right after Rick says, you think I like this. So moving on to the third mention of the temperature control malfunction is after Michonne says they're free and the CRM will think they're dead. Rick still says he's not going home, and Michonne tells him, Nat was right. She found him but didn't find him. And she was hoping that Nat was wrong, but she thinks he's right. So that was her temperature mentally malfunctioning, because now it's not like she's lost hope, but she's seeing things for what they truly are. It's not what she had in her head, this wonderful reunion where they would love on each other and then run away back home. Rick is fighting her on this, so she's having a mental break as far as, is this really happening? So I thought that it's very clever of Danai to use this temperature method to talk about their mental shifts. So Rick still says he's not going home, and she says, what, I'm leaving. You get your wish, I'm leaving. She grabs all her stuff, says, I'm going back to my kids. She tells him, you're lying. I mean, it's obvious. Like I said, something is off about him. every way out he's given, he's not taking it. She leaves the unit. She goes into the hallway and she just stops. And she does what a lot of us women do. When we're wanting someone to come after us, she stops and she looks back and she just waits and hopes against hope that he opens that door and comes running to her. But he doesn't. And so she just decides, I have to leave. So, in leaving someone behind, that's again a shift in her mental temperature. She has said from the beginning of this series, she doesn't leave people behind. Their group has never left people behind. So it kills her, and you can see it in her face that she has to leave the man she loves behind because mentally he's not the man she remembers anymore. So she has no choice but to leave him and try to get back to her kids. Meanwhile, you have Rick still standing in that condo, warring with himself. He keeps putting his hand out to touch the door, to open the door, but it's like something is holding him back. And finally, his heart wins out and he opens the door. He goes running after her. Meanwhile, you get a shot of another CRM helicopter coming towards the building. Michonne's downstairs and she sees the walkers outside and she's just, I guess, mentally preparing herself for what she has to do to get through these walkers. And that's when the CRM helicopter fires, I think it's a bomb or something at the building to destroy it, to get rid of all evidence of their existence. Rick comes out of nowhere and knocks her out of the way just in time before she's hit with the glass and some debris. So they get away. They're running through the building. They end up in a gym where they find a body severely electrocuted and a beside it. So turns out this condo, this entire area was run by scientists, engineers, and other people with, STEAM abilities. And they were trying to create or use innovative ideas and practices to bring about a better world, but they failed. And this woman who has unalived herself, it seems like she had done it recently because of the state of decay or lack thereof. She's saying that, they failed, and she just wanted to be remembered as a person who didn't take the world like it was, and she tried to change it, and that's how she died. So right above the body of this woman, there are words or notes adorning the wall. That one of them actually says, "Trust in your ability to adapt and overcome. Your past doesn't define you." Rick is reading this and it's like another message to him. Like, man, trust in your ability to adapt. So you need to adapt to this current situation. And that current situation being, your wife is here. The wife that you haven't seen in 8 years has found you. And she's come to take you home. You need to find a way to adapt to this new situation and overcome your past that you've had with the CRM. Because right now they have such a hold on him that he can't see the forest for the trees. I mean, he has a clear way out and he's not taking it. Another note says, "Keep hope alive." And by the time Michonne finds him, his hope was dead. He had buried it just so he could go on because it was too much for him. And he was comfortable with just believing that his wife, his family, everyone that he left behind or was taken from, that they were alive and that they were okay. So hope at this point wasn't really needed because he had chosen to believe everything was fine. And he could just focus on what he was doing with the CRM. But also in this gym, Rick reverts into this comfort thing. As far as rejecting Michonne and telling her that she should have never come for him. I think it was about the 20th time watching this episode that I realized that Rick at one point was standing next to pieces of rebar sticking out of concrete, which is a call back to the very thing that separated him from Michonne and from his family. He fallen and had been impaled by rebar sticking out of concrete on the ground. So he makes some really hurtful statements to Michonne, just trying to drive her away, and told her, you left the kids. I didn't choose to leave. You left, and you shouldn't have come. So, of course, this earns him a much-deserved hit in the chest. Because at this point, I think we, as the audience, were like, Rick, shut the F up, dude. Like, what are you saying right now? She shouldn't have come? Like, are you serious? I mean, they're fighting, and the fighting at this point has just, it's not even fighting. It's just words, well, like mouth vomit coming from him, and then her disbelief. And she tells him, I don't know who you are, because the man that I knew would never talk to me like this. So Rick just counters with, we're getting out of here. So they start to make their way out of the gym, fighting through the walkers, and they're noticeably out of sync for the first time ever since they met. More ways than one, mentally, emotionally, physically. Like, they end up attacking the same walker, and she's like, I had this, and he's like, I had it, and he pulls his blade out and gets blood all over her face, and and she's like, really? So they move on past this. They're headed even further back upstairs, and the inevitable happens. One of them gets pinned down, and it's Michonne. Normally, she wouldn't have to worry about him helping her, but she does now, because he's acting weird. He's continually telling her he doesn't want her there, and she needs to leave. So he ends up telling her, I'm not leaving you. And she says, I just needed to hear that. So they make it out of this predicament. He gets her out. They make it back to the unit. And upon entering, we get the AI again. Welcome home. So during that whole incident with the chandelier falling and trapping Michonne's leg, and him not leaving her, and they're both fighting off the walkers as he's trying to get her out of this situation. And he tells her, after she thanks him, like, you don't ever have to thank me. Basically, like, this is what I do. Like, I would not leave you like this. So again, with the wishy-washiness of his attitude. So when they get back into the unit, they're just standing there, kind of looking around. Well, she's looking around, but his eyes are just fixed on her. And you can see once that AI says, welcome home, it's like he's feeling it. Like those walls, the physical walls he had, or the mental walls he had, they're breaking. And then the AI says, temperature control malfunction. So this whole mental block he had against her, it's crumbling and it's malfunctioning. So this is another mental shift with Rick. And then also with the backdrop of the building just coming down and the ceiling, kind of falling. And the symbolism just doesn't stop throughout this entire episode. So this scene is where he could, he knows deep down, like, Michonne is his home. And this mental fortress he has built around his mind is malfunctioning and is breaking down. So in the middle of being with her, in their little intimate moment, he starts having a panic attack. I mean, it just shows like this fortress he had was so strong. I mean, it was like the walls of Jericho that no one ever thought could be knocked down. Well, these walls were falling down flat, and he was panicking. And like the tonic that she is, Michonne brings him back to the moment by placing his hand against her chest. I mean, and then you see another shot, and they have visible scars on their bodies, and the significance in them finding their way back to one another emotionally. It's like they're bearing their souls, they're bearing all of their scars, In one of the final scenes, we get the meat and potatoes of the episode. We get to hear what's really going on with each of them. And Michonne tells them, as the building is falling, and Rick's like, we got to get out of here. And she says, no, we're not leaving until we decide where we're going. It's not time to go. We got to stay here and figure this out. And she talks about, her year with Nat and how she truly doesn't know how the kids are because Judith stopped answering the walkie. The CRM took a year from her. And she tells Rick, this back and forth, this wishy-washiness with you, like it's hurting me. And she needs to know why he's doing this. Like the real reason of why he doesn't want to go home. And he finally comes clean. And he says, they took Carl from him. They took his memory of his son from him, which explains why he could never describe Carl to the artist back at the CRM in the little city. He could never explain what Carl looked like because he couldn't remember. Like they had beaten him down so bad and stripped him of his memories of his son. And then of his memories of Michonne to where he couldn't even see her face after a while. And he tells her like he could not endure losing her. So he found a way to live but be dead inside. And seeing her again, he didn't want to feel that way because if he actually lost her and knowing he actually lost her, he couldn't endure it. He couldn't take it. So he just wanted to have her gone so he could just believe she was okay. Because out of sight, not necessarily out of mind, but he could believe she was fine. He could believe their family was safe. And so Michonne just turns and I knew it. I was like, I knew it. She got that artist to draw Carl and she gives him the phone and she literally gives him his son back. And you get a flashback of Rick remembering his son. Basically, the last way we really saw him, he was older, longer hair, and he was putting that hat, his sheriff's hat, on his head. I mean, this is what everyone was waiting on, like the real reason. And also, it's what Rick's been waiting on. And it brings us back to the song at the beginning of the episode, Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. This is what Rick's mind and his heart have been waiting on. This promise. Their love is still there. He had never truly lost her or what they had together. My girl Michonne raised that yellow ribbon in front of him boldly and said, come on home, baby. Like, I have to say, Andrew Lincoln and Danai Gurira, if they do not get Emmys for this scene or this episode, there is no justice in the world. I mean, they acted the hell out of this scene. Tear jerking, snot coming out of your nose kind of acting. Every aspect of this episode was just fire and on point. And it tugged at you. Like you could really feel their emotions. Not just in this scene, but throughout the entire episode. It was just so powerful. And I love that Michonne's final weapon of choice was the rebar. The very same material that wounded Rick and ultimately took him away from her for 8 years. They get in the elevator. There's like 2 minutes of energy left or electricity left. They make it downstairs in the elevator, and one of the signs in the elevator says, technology will save us. Failure is not an option. So I think, again, we get some foreshadowing here. I mean, does this mean we get a call back to Michonne's year with Nat? Could he have taught her some things about explosives? Because she does still have his lighter. They do end up with a backseat full of ethanol left by the people who had run this town before. So maybe that comes into play in episode 5 or 6, probably episode 6. Maybe they take out everyone at the summit. Who knows? We also get the ending song called Take Us Back by Layla Diane. So this song, it's being sung in a foreign language, but I looked it up. And so this song, it seems hopeful, but certainly has some dark undertones. When the higher hills have turned to blue and the waves are lapping where children grew, all that we have known will be an echo of days when love was true. Muted voices just beyond the silent surface of what has gone. This scares me, I gotta say. I also couldn't help noticing the hopeful yet fearful score at the end of the scene where he tells her, what was truly going on. I mean, that music was, it was kind of joyful, but then there was this dark undertone that I couldn't help noticing. I think other people noticed it too, maybe. I mean, could Rick and Michonne possibly not make it back home? Could one of them die? I don't think they would be stupid enough to do something like that again. Another theme through this episode was people or groups having their own ideas about how to save the world and their ways not working. So maybe Rick and Michonne may be included in this. Could they be going about getting home or saving their home in the right way? I mean, that remains to be seen, because there's still so much to talk about as far as the timeline, which at this point is trending on a path towards maybe lining up with Negan and Maggie's. I mean, they're basically right across the river. It could just as easily line up with Carol and Daryl's storyline, but I'll save that for another video. So I think, I'll end it right here. Once again, before I go, if you're new to the channel, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and share the channel. If you want to see me do more videos like this, definitely drop a comment down below. This is your girl Lynn, signing off, and I'm out.